Hello there, everybody. Firstly, apologies for my absence, but my God, did I hurt my back. I don't know how it happened. I just woke up one morning and, well, anyway, allegedly it's a problem with a disc, according to a specialist. It was the first time, actually, anybody has complimented me for my enormous bulge, which took me by surprise. But it turns out he was talking about a bulging disc in the middle of my back. And that was disappointing, but there we are. Anyway, I digress. This is Clare Foges. She is a Times columnist and former speechwriter for both David Cameron during his time as Prime Minister and Boris Johnson during his time as London Mayor. So her allegiance is there for all to see. But what happens here is a 92-year-old woman called Joan decides to call up Clare Foges' LBC show, and she couldn't contain her disgust at the coronation of Charles taking place during a time when so many people are struggling. This is an especially poignant, passionate and relevant speech because it isn't just some moaning young Republican like me having a pop at the obscene nature of the coronation, but clearly somebody who has a love of the tradition and the nostalgia for the monarchy from her youth. So let's take a look at this, shall we?
I'm 92, so I'm old enough to remember the previous coronation. That was just after the war. Now, we felt all together. We really did feel united. We felt united with the royal family. Although they were wealthy, we didn't know much about them. But all we knew was Buckingham Palace was bombed in one corner. The King and Queen stayed there, the princesses. Whether or not it was a PR job or whatever it was, we felt united. This was what brought us together. As for enjoying, we could sing in the air raid shelters together. That was a sense of unity. Now, all these years later, we are not united, far from it. I've worked with a charity and brought together people who had relatives who had actually died on our streets. 2 years ago, just before the COVID, we were holding regular sort of memorial services. Outrageous. People are starving.
Joan, what did you...
Hold on a moment. What is happening is families obscenely rich. I wrote to Prince Charles and said about veterans, war veterans who fought for their country were actually sleeping on the streets. Also, I was very conscious of poor Harry, all on his own. So I have no time at all because we had to pay for it out of public purse. And when Harry wanted to come over and bring his wife and children much earlier on, they refused to offer protection for him, although he's the number one target of the Taliban. They will never forget him. It was refused, and yet we out of public purse, had to pay all that protection. I'm sorry, but I love tradition. I love the idea of Westminster. I love tradition. I love the way the forces are and that. But actually, celebrating in the midst of so much hunger, I would much sooner have had Prince Albert, who actually cared about the poor.
Let's just rewatch that moment she tries to interrupt, shall we?
Joan, what did you...
Hold on a moment.
Come on.
There
it is. Eyebrows fully raised. Eyes rolled back into the head. Disgusted at being told to hold on. And that disgust turns to sort of a maniacal grin.
What is happening?
To this feigning of terror.
This family is obscene.
To this finding it hilarious. Or at least pretending to. Full gambit of emotion there from Clare Foges, wasn't it? Right, so because my back is destroyed and I should otherwise been at work, I spent the entire coronation laying in bed making loud groaning noises. The groaning noises had nothing to do with my back because I was heavily medicated. It had everything to do with the absolute nonsense I was watching on the BBC. You may know by now I'm a glutton for punishment, so I sat through 4 miserable hours of it. To us normal people, it was an absurd spectacle and scarcely believable anybody takes it seriously. But the caller here is absolutely right. It was all the more insensitive in the current climate of chronic food bank usage and people unable to pay their bills. I always appreciate the older generations phoning in these radio shows and speaking out against such blatant injustices. Because like I said earlier in the video, it does happen to hold so much more weight than somebody like me rabbiting on about it. So well done for ringing in there, Joan. And I do hate to sound patronising, but honestly, it is often just younger people rabbiting on about the cost of these things. So it was really great to hear an older voice calling it out as well. Alright, thanks for watching, folks. Bye-bye.